You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo, and I have to start off this episode by sharing that I'm really excited because I just figured out how to lock the arm that holds my podcast mic. And you know what? Like a year into this, and I don't know how I didn't figure this out sooner, but my life is made right now because now I don't have to worry about you guys hearing me clearly. So I just had to share that because I'm stoked right now. Welcome to another Solo with Mo episode. I started thinking about what I wanted to share yesterday, and I really didn't land on something specific until I was on my walk this morning. And I decided that I wanted to start out by sharing some things that happened this week that brought me to like a next level of awareness. And I want to share these personal examples because whenever I hear personal examples from other people, it gives me a chance to kind of look at my life and examine where I might experience the same thing. So this might help you guys to kind of have a better understanding of some of the work that I do and how I work with people and what you might be able to take and apply to your own life from this episode. So one of the things that happened this week, something really simple. So I meditate pretty much nearly every day. There's rarely a day that I skip now because I find it has brought me so much peace and really helped to regulate my nervous system. And so I meditate for at least 5 minutes. Sometimes my meditation could be a walking meditation. So just when I'm out and about, listening to music, could be listening to a podcast, could be listening to nothing. But oftentimes I really like using these headphones that cover my ears, and I use the Insight Timer app, which is a free app. If you haven't used it before, I highly recommend it. And so for this particular meditation, I was sitting on the couch, nobody else was in the house, and I was listening to a meditation that was mostly frequency sound, because I've found that when I listen to these frequency meditations, they have an amazing ability to affect my body and help me to release or let go of stuck emotions. So I'm listening to it, and all of a sudden I hear this noise from the kitchen. And you know how sometimes, I don't know if this happens for you guys, but occasionally like there'll just be the strangest noises in my house, and I have no idea where they're coming from. My fridge, thank you, Jared Burton, by the way, again, is from Jared Burton because my other fridge died recently, and I needed something to keep my food cold, right? It does not have an ice maker, and yet it made this loud thud like you would have thought a whole tray of ice had just dropped inside there or something. Now I'm about 10 minutes into my meditation, so my body is completely relaxed. It feels amazing. Again, one of the top reasons why I do it. It feels like I just am laying at the beach in the sun. And when I hear this noise, I had this jolt of like energy, like felt like an electric current run up my body from like around my stomach all the way up through my chest, almost to my throat. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And I realized it was a jolt of like anxiety or cortisol or like whatever that stress, can't think of the right word, but whatever that stress is in your body that you get when you're under stress. I felt it more than I've ever experienced it so directly in my life as an observer. And I realized, and I've always known this about myself, I'm very sensitive to sound. I'm sensitive to my environment in general. I'm sensitive to energy. I feel everything, which often includes other people's feelings and other people's emotions and energies. And that experience just really proved to be a huge reminder to me how sensitive I am and how sensitive my body is. And it made me reflect on, in what other areas of my life am I experiencing that feeling? But because I'm going, or doing something, I'm not recognizing how stressed out I am or how much anxiety it's causing me. It was this incredible feeling. And because it came from like my stomach, close to my root chakra, which if you know anything about the chakra systems, the root chakra is the lowest and it has to do with safety and feeling secure. And so it makes sense that that's where it would start from and that it would come up my body. And so it just really led me to reflect this week on where else am I feeling something like this and how is it holding me back? I often will experience that feeling. I can now recognize it when I'm walking by myself. If I hear a loud noise around me or if I hear someone approaching me and I don't know who it is, I get this jolt. Uh, I will not as much anymore, but sometimes still experience this when I'm like walking around in the dark. I used to have a fear of the dark and I've really worked really hard to overcome it. But I think it's because of that feeling of fear that jolts through my body that it would start to just kind of capitalize on itself, and I could create some, huge story as to why I was feeling this fear. So that happened on probably like Wednesday or Thursday of this last week. And then I had another experience on Saturday. And basically what's happening with these experiences is the more I'm meditating and the more I'm becoming aware of my feelings and emotions throughout the day, like I can say in the moment, oh, wow, I felt a wave of sadness just now, or a wave of anxiety, or whoa, that was joy. The more I'm becoming aware of those feelings in the moment, the better detective I'm becoming at understanding where this is coming from and what is triggering it. So on Saturday, I had this moment where my partner Tam and I were talking about what our plans were for the day. And one of the things I had to do was I had to take my mom's car back to her because I'd been borrowing it for a couple of days. And so my plan was I wanted to go for a walk because it's essential that I get outside every day and touch a tree. If you follow me on Instagram, social media at all, you know that I do my Touch a Tree, Download an Insight series where when I get out in nature and I physically make contact with nature, it helps me to ground my energy and bring me back to like a regulated nervous system spot. And so I have to walk every day, and preferably right in the morning is ideal. And so I had this idea in my head of I was going to go for a walk, have some breakfast, meditate, and then take my mom's car back, which meant that Tom would have to follow me in my car and then be able to bring me back in my car. And as we started chatting, it became obvious that he had lots of things going on that day too, and things he wanted to get done. And so we were trying to come to a consensus on like what should we do first and what time should we do what. And I started to feel this wave of frustration and resentment and a little bit of anger, I think, roll up from my stomach into my chest. And I felt this wave of emotion when I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth as I was thinking about the day, because I started to run this story in my head of, oh, I'm not going to be able to get everything done that I want to get done today. I wanted to go for my walk, return my mom's car, go grocery shopping, do some things for my business, read, and I think I had one other thing planned that I wanted to do that evening. And I was starting to realize that wasn't going to happen. And so I stopped where I was after I brushed my teeth, and I went out to the kitchen and I said to Tom, I don't know what's happening, but I'm feeling all of these emotions. Can I just share them with you? And fortunately for me and for us, we've got this relationship that we've developed and grown to where we can do things like this. And it has been so incredibly healing. So I just shared with him all the things I was feeling. And I didn't really know what to do with it, but I just said it out loud, and that felt better. And he was like, I get it. I totally get it. And so we went on our way, and I went down to my mom's house and hung out with them for a while he was doing some errands. And so I ended up staying at my mom's house for like 3 hours because we were chatting and just getting caught up on things. And so we didn't leave. Tom came to pick me up, and then we didn't leave until about 3. And then we went to Goodwill down in Edmonds, and Tom ran into Goodwill while I sat in the car and just like relaxed for a little bit. And I started to think about it, and I realized, looking back on that morning, the number one reason I was feeling frustrated and angry is because I didn't have control over my day anymore. I wasn't going to get done what I needed to get done. I wanted that control because if I got those things done, then I would feel good. If I got those things done, then I would feel peace. If I got all those things done, then I would be productive and successful. And I had this mind-blowing moment where I was like, wow, I'm still trying to control things. I'm still trying to control my environment because I think that that's what's going to bring me peace. Oh, it felt so good to just say that out loud again. So when Tom got back to the car, I shared that with him, and he was like, this is amazing. Like, for you to realize this is huge. And I said, yeah, I know. And it's also like, I've got to figure out how to let this go. And so because I had said it out loud, a big piece of this I'm realizing is being able to voice what I'm feeling and what I'm processing. Sometimes that's all I need to do to let it go. Because whatever happened on Saturday was exactly what needed to happen that day. I needed to spend that time with my mom. I needed to process those things that we talked about. And then Tom and I had a lovely rest of the day, and I made oatmeal chocolate chip cookies, and I got ready for the class that I was co-leading the next day. And everything that happened was exactly what needed to happen. Oh, the other thing I wanted to get done that day was I wanted to weed my yard, which I don't particularly love to do, but it needed to happen because it was like 75 degrees. It was a beautiful day. And I knew I needed to do it before the weather starts to get more rainy than it is sunny here. And so when I got home, I did weed for about half an hour, and I got done like the essential things I needed to get done. But I realized how much I still needed to let go of that and surrender to the flow of the day. Because when you surrender to that flow, everything is in divine order. And the things that really matter, the things that needed to get done and happen. It was more important for me to have that conversation with my mom than it was for me to like weed my yard or go grocery shopping or anything. So everything is a reflection to us of something that we need to heal within. And so if this resonates with you at all, these two examples that I gave, I would highly recommend that you play, because I like to use the word play rather than work. I'd like to recommend that you play with meditation and just try it for the next 20, 30 days. 5 minutes a day is all. I highly recommend using headphones just because I feel then it's like a more immersive experience and you block out any outside noises. It helped me when I was first starting, and it still helps me now, and I still prefer it. But if we can all begin to take note more often of these emotions that come up within us and recognize where they're coming from, that it's not from an external source, right? Because what I felt on Saturday wasn't because Tom was telling me what we had to do that day. He didn't do that at all. This was all coming from me and from my desire to control what was going to happen that day. So I really truly believe that this is a big part of the work. This is a big part of us all understanding where we might have things that have happened to us in the past that we haven't let go of yet, emotions we haven't let go of yet, or different ways in which we're trying to control things in our lives in order to get the outcome that we think, like we think that this will get us the outcome, when really and truly the peace and the fulfillment will come from within. So I want to move from that into embodying the work. This is a topic that I've really wanted to talk about for a while. And I just want to riff on this for a little bit. Because when you have new levels of awareness and you're going through, maybe you've been on this healing journey for a while, or maybe you're just beginning it, or maybe you're like, Margaret, what the heck is this? I have no idea what this work is. It's really about becoming the best version of you. And becoming the best version of you brings you more peace, more happiness, more fulfillment, better connections, better relationships. It changes your world. And there's this part of the work that has to do with learning new information, gathering new knowledge, finding teachers to help guide you and lead you and teach you new information about meditation or breath work or all these things. And then after that gathering of the information, there's constantly this like gather a little bit and then embody and integrate. And what I'm finding more and more as I get to meet new people in my world is that a lot of people have a hard time or ignore the part of the work that's most important, which is the integration and the embodiment piece. So in order to truly achieve healing, we need to embody the work we're learning about and integrate it into our lives in order to be the best coach, therapist, teacher, guide, human. Embodiment is where it's at. So the definition of embodiment, or to embody, means a quality. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I looked up the definition of embody online, and it said a synonym for embody is integrate, which I mentioned already. It's to embody a quality or an idea exactly. And then an example of that is she embodied good sportsmanship on the playing field. So one of the ways you can begin to integrate or embody the work is to use it on a daily basis. So like I just spoke about meditation being an example of that. Breath work is another example of that. Body work, which could be yoga, could be walking, could be some somatic work. Another way of integration is interaction with other humans. And this one I had to laugh at because as an introvert, there are definitely times where I want to hermit in my house and not come out for a while. And some of that is absolutely 100% what I need to do. I'm also a reflector in human design. And if you know anything about human design, as a reflector, all of my energy centers are open, which means when you put me in a crowd of people, I feel everything. I feel everybody's energy. And it's been quite an experience learning how to recharge my batteries. And so if you want to learn more about human design, I'm just going to throw it out there. You need to talk to Melissa Weidling with Butterfly Thistle. Her website's butterflythistle.com. And she does human design readings. And it's a fantastic way to add to your knowledge about yourself. If you're curious, reach out to her. She lives in Bellingham, Washington, but she works with people over Zoom all the time. And she's fantastic. So it's a good thing for me to recharge my battery. It's a good thing for me to have time alone so that I can separate my energy from other people and come back to my baseline. And my baseline by myself, with no other influence of energy around me, is very stable, very mellow, very neutral. I feel very calm. And it doesn't mean that I don't have feelings or emotions that come through and bring me pain or bring me joy. But my baseline, when I'm just feeling good, is very neutral. So I know that when I'm not at my neutral point, I have to check in with myself and ask, is this feeling mine? Is this emotion mine? Because there's a very good chance that it most likely is not. What I've realized, though, is that in order to manifest and in order to create and in order to have these opportunities come up where I might be triggered by someone else, or I might realize I have something I need to work on, I need to interact with other humans. This is why teaching for me has been, teaching and speaking and doing retreats and workshops have been so fantastic, because I have a lot of opportunities to interact with all sorts of different kinds of people. And so with those people, they bring up at times really hard topics with me. They might have a critique or feedback from me that's hard to hear. They might say something to me that I don't like. And each time that has happened, I have really worked very hard to get to this point where I can take it in and recognize that there might be something here for me to learn, or there might be an opportunity to heal something within me. And so it's really important that we have interaction with other humans in order to engage in this experience. That's what we're here for. And so I really wanted to talk about this because I see a lot of people and a lot of healers and a lot of people who are in the healing world and people who are not in the healing world staying away from this and avoiding it and like talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And so I just really want to encourage you can be selective about your environments. I definitely am. And I'm also very intentional about putting myself around a variety of people who don't always agree with me. One of the best ways for us to learn is to put ourselves in environments with people who disagree with us, who want to challenge us, who want to have us think bigger, think more expansive. And so I would really encourage you to pick some events or pick some sort of interaction over the course of the month where you can engage with people that are outside of your usual circle. And so I usually have some networking meetings that I go to a couple times a month. I'm teaching 2 classes. So happens this month of October. This is actually airing in November. I think this episode is airing in November, but I'm teaching 2 classes this month. And I try to pick at least 3 to 4 different events throughout the month where I know I'm going to be interacting with people that I don't know, very intentionally. So I would just really encourage you to do the same and experiment with it, play with it, and start to become the observer in your life. in those situations, when somebody says something that might bug you or bring something up in you, bring a feeling up in you, recognize it and try to see if you can figure out where it's coming from. And when you're in the midst of that interaction with someone, recognize the feeling that comes up and then make a different choice on how you respond. It's all about how we respond versus how we react. And embodying the work is hard. It's not easy. It's one of the hardest and yet most freaking fulfilling things that I've ever done. Because with it comes more peace, like I mentioned, more fulfillment, more harmony, and more balance. All right. One of the other things that comes along with embodying and learning and growing is taking in new information that I mentioned earlier, right? And so right now I'm reading this book that I wanted to share some excerpts with you. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One. So I really love Joe Dispenza's work. I've been listening to him and reading up on him now for probably the last 3-4 years. And I'm reading this book with my small group coaching girls, these 3 women that I have in small group. And so we're reading it and breaking it down and discussing it. And so our last meeting, we talked about part 1, which is the science of you. And I want to share some things that I learned from this section that I think will just add to what I've already spoken about when it comes to embodying the work and gaining new levels of awareness in order to become the best version of you. Part 2 of his book goes into your brain and meditation. And then part 3 is stepping toward your new destiny. So a lot of what Joe talks about is the power of being present and how having that presence can bring about all sorts of amazing change in your life. So to start off with, I wanted to read this beginning in the introduction, this section, change as a choice instead of a reaction, which I just mentioned, right? Thinking about how you respond versus react when you're in conversation with someone. It seems that human nature is such that we balk at changing until things get really bad and we're so uncomfortable that we can no longer go on with business as usual. I just want to pause and ask who can identify with that. This was 100% where I was at when I left the Seattle Art Museum. And I said to myself internally, I said, I want to get to the point where I start making decisions before I let it get so bad. Because I was starting to have panic attacks and blackout in meetings because I was so insanely frustrated and unhappy. And so I remember saying this to myself. He goes on to say, this is as true for an individual as it is for society. We wait for crisis, trauma, loss, disease, and tragedy before we get down to looking at who we are, what we are doing, how we are living, what we are feeling, and what we believe or know in order to embrace true change. Often it takes a worst-case scenario for us to begin making changes that support our health, relationships, career, family, and future. My message is, why wait? I love that so much. So that kind of gives you an idea of how he starts out the book and what this is going to be about. Then I wanted to skip up to the first chapter. And if you have this book at home, it's on page 9. And he starts by talking about the science behind this. And science was never a topic in school that I particularly loved or thrived on, but more and more, I've really loved learning about some of the aspects of the science behind things because it helps to explain energy, which I'm really passionate about. So on page 9, he talks about the classical atom. And, in school, we often learn that there's a nucleus and then there's subatomic particles around the atom. And I'm going to show this. If you're on YouTube, you'll see this picture. So that's kind of as far as we go in school, usually, is we see the styrofoam ball of the nucleus and then the subatomic particles around it. Well, what he shows on the next page is the quantum atom, because basically what he breaks down in this first part is how most of what we see around us is energy. It's something that we don't see. And so I'm going to explain that right here in his words more than mine, because he explains it better. So he says, usually when he has conversations with people, this is how he breaks it down, or this is where the dialogue goes. Where does the intelligence that keeps our heart beating come from? That's a part of the autonomic nervous system. Where is that system located? The brain. The brain's limbic system is part of the autonomic nervous system. And within the brain, are there specific tissues that are responsible for keeping the heart beating? Yes. What are those tissues made up of? Cells. What are those cells made up of? Molecules. What are those molecules made up of? Atoms. And what are those atoms made up of? Subatomic particles. And what are those subatomic particles primarily composed of? Energy. Now, this breaks what has normally been taught in schools, which is they call the Newtonian version of an atom, where you just see the nucleus and you see the subatomic particles. They don't talk about how the particles are made up of energy. They don't talk about it because you can't see it. And so people have always been afraid to talk about what you can't see, right? And so in his example of a quantum atom, he shows how the new school atom, quantum version of the atom with an electron cloud, the atom is 99.99999% energy and just 0.00001% matter. So if I'm looking at my glass of water here in front of me, this is mostly energy. Yes, we see the glass and we see the water in there, but there's a lot that we can't see. So when you start to think about it, it kind of blows your mind, right? Because what are we not seeing? What is not in front of us? And so this is what he digs into the science behind it. And then he begins to dive into how essentially, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I talk a lot about thoughts and feelings, and how in energy healing work, thoughts and feelings, you can imagine them like shapes. When you get an emotion stuck in your body, it can actually get stuck in different parts of your body and it can start to cause a physical illness. And so his work supports that. And he starts to talk about this on page 22. And he says, quite simply, our routine, known thoughts and feelings perpetuate the same state of being, which creates the same behaviors and creates the same reality. So if we want to change some aspect of our reality, we have to think, feel, and act in new ways. We have to be different in terms of our responses to experiences. We have to become someone else. We have to create a new state of mind. We need to observe a new outcome with that new mind. And so this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, where I was talking about the meditation that I had and then the response that I had to my day changing on Saturday, right? I could have responded with frustration and anger and really not been in a good mood that day. Instead, I chose to embrace the day. I chose to embrace what was happening in the flow, and I surrendered to what was happening because I knew it was meant to be. That response and that state of being within me changes who I am. It changes everything because I was there and in that place of surrendering, I had a really good time with my mom. I had a really good time with Tom. And there were other interactions I had that day with people I didn't know that were beautiful. So you can see how it would start to affect your environment. Because if you're interacting differently with the environment, that changes the outcome. Just mind blown. So on page 25, I just have a couple more things I want to mention. He talks about going from the Newtonian way of being to the quantum creator. So shifting and changing the way we think. So he says, what does going Newtonian mean when applied to your ability to create? It's when the external environment is controlling your internal environment, thinking or feeling. That's cause and effect, right? So if I go back to my Saturday experience, if I had let my external environment, the fact that my day got all switched up, if I had that affect my thoughts and feelings, I'm letting my environment create my experience. Instead, change your internal environment, the way you think and feel, and then see how the external environment is altered by your efforts. Strive to create an unknown, new future experience. Then when an unforeseen event occurs in your favor, you will be pleasantly surprised. You just became a quantum creator. You just went from cause and effect to causing an effect. So he's basically talking about how the way that we all live, whether we see it or not, is this quantum creator. We can't control anything. We have this illusion, this idea that we can control things. We can control our schedule. We think we can control our friends or our family or all sorts of things. But in reality, we actually can't. So why not play with that? Rather than allowing my schedule to dictate how I feel inside, what if I focus on creating a stable internal environment? What if I focus on creating more peace within myself, creating more happiness, creating more fulfillment and more joy, and then seeing what happens outside of me because of that? Seems like a lot less work, right? Seems strange that by changing myself, I could then change my environment. Does that mean I could be living in a different house? Does that mean I would have different people around me? It's very, very likely that it could, right? So if you're looking for a new book to read, I highly recommend this one. This last piece I want to read to you is on page 63. And I just think it's an interesting statistic to leave you with. So he says, think about that. 5% of the mind is conscious, struggling against the 95% that is running subconscious automatic programs. 95% of our mind is running subconscious automatic programs. We've memorized a set of behaviors so well that we have become an automatic, habitual body-mind. In fact, when the body has memorized a thought, action, or feeling to the extent that the body is the mind, when mind and body are one, we are in a state of being the memory of ourselves. And if 95% of who we are by age 35 is a set of involuntary programs, memorized behaviors, and habitual emotional reactions, it follows that 95% of our day, we are unconscious. We only appear to be awake. Yikes. Yeah, this book is just fascinating. It's fascinating, and it helps to explain so much more to me about why I have found meditation to be the beginning of this journey for me, because it's brought me to a whole new level of awareness so that I now have the power to actually create more change in my life through working on myself versus trying to control people outside of me. So part of my goal in my work as a guide and as a coach and as a speaker and someone who believes that it's so possible to create this kind of a ripple effect in the world, part of my work is to learn as much about this research as possible to help share and disseminate information that we can all use to alter our lives for the better. And I work really hard to take in new information and then integrate and embody it so that those results show up in my own life and are visible to people. Because I know oftentimes, hey, I'm a very logical thinking person. One of the most difficult things I've had to work on is turning off that logical side and opening up to this other part of me that has been there all along. Because society has conditioned me to use only my logical brain. And I am so much more than that, as are you. Hey, I'm popping in for a moment to let you know that if you're interested in working with me one-on-one in a small group, or you'd like to attend one of my upcoming retreats, please reach out or add yourself to my email list. You can go to iloveitwhen.org and scroll to the bottom where you'll see there's a spot to sign up. I also love to speak, teach, and create experiences for small, medium, or large-size companies. If you know someone that I should know, please connect us. I'm looking to utilize I Love It When to create global change, and that will require collaborating with all of you. You're all so much more powerful than you realize. Remind yourself of that today. All right, so to end the podcast today, I actually want to pull some tarot cards for us. I haven't done this before on the podcast, so I think this is going to be fun. So if you watch tarot card readers on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, they will often do tarot card readings for their collective. And what they mean by that is just anybody who follows them. So when you are pulled to someone, whether it be a speaker or somebody you admire, a leader, it's usually because you're on some sort of a similar frequency. So if you're listening to my podcast, I'm going to consider the idea that you're probably pulled to me for a reason. So I'm going to pull 3 cards for us, and I'll talk a little bit about them, and then let me know if they resonate for you and what comes up for you when I talk about them. All right. And if you have no familiarity with tarot, totally okay. I am actually learning it right along with you. So this deck that I'm going to use is called the Light Seers deck by Chris Ann, and I'll show it to you here on YouTube. It's fantastic. It's a really beautiful deck. I love the colors, texture, color, how things feel. all matters to me a lot as an empath. So the fact that these cards are just have beautiful colors and beautiful feelings to them is a big reason why I chose it. So, okay, hold one moment while I shuffle. So when I'm doing a reading for myself or for someone else or for the collective, I always ground myself, thoroughly shuffle the cards, and ask, what do we need to know right now? Okay, there we go. All right, so the first card that flew out is the Hierophant. And I'll show it for those of you that are on YouTube. You can check this out. And if you're listening, there's an image of a man that's like cross-legged at the bottom of a set of stairs that leads up to this beautiful pink sky. And he's laughing. He looks very happy. And the Hierophant has to do with being a teacher or a guide. And then we had the wheel pop out. And this is an image of a woman on top of some circles that look like pentacles, like coins. And she's dancing and she's got these dice around her neck. And then the third card is the Ten of Wands. And it's an image of a woman, again, traveling across what looks like a hill of grass. And she's carrying a lot of stuff. And she's got a briefcase that's got some of the wands in the briefcase. So I'm going to, because I'm still learning the tarot deck, I'm going to pull up the description book that comes with the deck and actually read you some of the information from the card descriptions. So the Hierophant. This is about tradition, a lesson, spiritual leader or guide, enlightenment, awakening in service of spirit, formal education or training, new paradigms. As you search for your divine truth, you create frameworks of belief that help you to expand your consciousness and ground your faith into this reality. If you've been stuck in an old tradition or a structured way of acting or being that is no longer serving you, it is time to let it fall away in order to make space for a better version of you. Wow, if that does not align what I was just talking about with Joe's book and everything before, that is hilarious. The Hierophant serves as a gateway between divine source and the seeker. So be open to new paradigms, perspectives, and teachers in your life. Look to the patterns around you and strive to understand your own internal compass. Know that while there is wisdom in the teachings of the mystics, the voice of your own heart is the one voice that matters the most. Find the wisdom of the heavens within. Wow, that no wonder that was our first card that came out. That completely aligns with what I've been talking about. Hilarious. What I love about this. All right, the wheel. Changes, fate, destiny, a lucky break, cycling up through karmic lessons, the chaos of creation, a turning point, serendipity. Get ready, sweet soul, for the wheel is about to gift you divine blessings. Synchronicity is afoot, so look for wonderful new opportunities to propel your life ahead. Be prepared for fortuitous meetings or a fork in the path that will change everything for the better. If you're open to spotting opportunity, it's yours for the taking. Just follow the breadcrumbs of serendipity and fate towards your happy ending. Remember that the wheel is always spinning and that things are never the same as they were before. Learn to enjoy this constant regeneration and know that with every spin, we have the chance to cycle upward toward our own expansion and enlightenment. Trying to control the outcome of the wheel of fortune would prove to be impossible, so don't. Grab your lucky dice and see the spinning of the wheel for what it really is. All the beauty of a lifetime of experiences waiting to spring forth and be lived. I love that. So all about changes and blessings, opportunities. All right, and then the Ten of Wands. Taking on too much, an opportunity to free yourself from heavy burdens, obligations, finding yourself close to a successful outcome, the need to prioritize, a message to keep going. All those responsibilities. Do you really need to carry all those wands, all by yourself, all at the same time? Couldn't you drop a few of them by prioritizing? Or maybe, just maybe, things would go a whole lot faster if you enlisted some help. All you have to do is ask. Drop the non-essentials and any heaviness that is weighing you down because you are so close, yet so burdened. Think levity and ease. Streamlining will expedite your goals and bring a relief to any overwhelm or molasses energy that you are feeling. Sometimes this means letting go of a learned behavior or a limiting belief, and sometimes it means deleting a task on your calendar. Whether your burdens are material, spiritual, literal, or energetic, it's clear that you've got some extra baggage right now. Release that ish and enjoy your last steps to the finish line. All right, so the Hierophant, all about a guide, the wheel, and 10 of Wands. So very much about what we've talked about today, which is in the process of bringing yourself into more awareness of what's happening in your body and the thoughts and emotions that you have. By bringing awareness to them, you have the opportunity then to let them go, to release them, to heal them. And when you let go of old behaviors, old limiting beliefs, you make space for something new, right? And energy can neither be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. So when you make space, something will come to fill it. And that's where manifestation and setting intentions around what you want to have fill that space comes into play. So I can't imagine a more perfect reading for this. That is hilarious and so beautiful. So let me know if that resonates for you. Please leave some comments on my YouTube channel. And if you have been listening to the podcast and you feel like you've gotten something from it, I would love to get a review from you on Apple Podcasts. That is always so much more helpful than people realize. So if you feel like this has been helpful, please do that. That would mean so much to me. And I hope you all are having a fantastic rest of your week and reach out with any questions. Thanks so much. See you next time.